Just a little bit about me. So I live and work in Portugal, and my specialization is working with children from the ages of 3 to 10. Okay, and I work in particular using picture books. So the session today will be looking at picture books in ELT and English language teaching, and I'm not at all sure of the availability of these kinds of books in Gaza, and whether what I have to say will be of use or not. But I hope that you're able to take something away from what I bring today. So I'm just going to share my screen and we'll start the session.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, okay.
So this is what I'm going to be talking about, picture books in ELT. And I thought that we could start, just a minute, just put this, doesn't work. Put that over there, okay. So I just thought, whoops, no, sorry. I just thought, it seems to be moving by itself. So I thought we'd just think about stories briefly first. Stories is big through the Hands Up project, and focus on particular on picture books, which I'm not sure that are as used as they are in Europe or not. I'm not sure. Share some ideas for using picture books, and then share some online resources. So I'm just a little bit hot, so I'm just going to take my jacket off. There we go. Yeah, it's quite cold in my house, and I'm never sure how many clothes I need, so I always wear layers. So, I wondered what kind of stories you used in your sessions. Could you sort of give me have a little sort of think about what kinds of stories you use in your classes? It might be different with your younger groups.
So Sandie, we sometimes use stories enlisted in the course box.
Right,
this is one thing.
Yeah.
And for teaching, for example, grammatical points, some of the teachers contextualize the grammatical point. So in the presentation technique or the presentation stage, they use stories. They use their own stories in different stages, for example, in the presentation phase, and sometimes to contextualize the students' learning, they use stories. So in addition to the stories included in the text box, teachers, they select authentic stories or authentic material, or they choose the stories they think that they can support students' learning according to the lesson and according to the skill they are targeting.
Okay, so you use coursebook stories, and when you said you use authentic stories, what would an authentic story be?
Sometimes they use some personal stories. For example, when teaching the past simple tense, it's not a story, just it is a narrative or you wave a story, a personal story.
Okay, so you use coursebook stories, personal stories. Any other stories that you use?
And sometimes they adapt some of the fairy tales, some of the folk stories, simplified versions of these.
Right, so traditional stories maybe, or fables, yeah. So, any more?
Yeah, animal stories?
Animal stories maybe. Animal stories.
So animal
stories.
Yeah.
So those might be also traditional stories or fables, yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe? Okay. So these are the kinds of stories that you use, your invented stories maybe, your personal stories. stories from the course book you mentioned, traditional stories, stories with morals, fables, or legends. I'm not sure if your animal stories might fit in there.
Yeah.
Do you use learner literature or readers?
Because the students we are teaching are from grade 1 to grade 9, so in the course box we don't have a reader, but from grade 10 to grade 12 they start to add readers. So no, from grade 1 to grade 9 there's no additional readers provided to the.
Okay.
No, no.
It used to be.
But sometimes as extra activities for high achievers or for non-curriculum activities, they use some readers.
Okay.
For example, for the drama clubs, they base their work upon a reader or upon literature or upon.
Okay. And what about picture books? Are you familiar with picture books?
Not quite sure about the picture box, you know, like comics or something like that.
Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So hopefully at the end of the session,
so
we will understand what.
something
Yeah.
new
So
and interesting.
today we're going to be talking about picture books, but I wanted to start with learner literature, just for you to get a feel for what a picture book wasn't. You mentioned that in your with your older learners, you use readers or learner literature. In fact, learner literature is written specifically for language learners, and it's usually published by ELT publishers. So these are a couple more, and they are normally graded, and they actually are available for all the way from grade 1 up to school leaving age. And as you said, sometimes they come with the course book, but sometimes they are sold separately. And often they are used in the language classroom precisely because they are written specifically for language learners. Are you familiar with any of these that you can see on the screen with your younger learners? You can see that there's one here called The Three Little Goats, which is probably based on the traditional story, The Billy Goat's Gruff. The Chapati is also a traditional story, probably from India. No, that's okay. So these are written specifically for language learners, and the reason I'm sharing them is because this is actually quite different to what a picture book is. So a picture book is not written for language learners. A picture book is authentic, and in fact, earlier you mentioned that you used authentic stories. So, and this is a definition of a picture book which I like to use. So, a picture book is something which is created or manufactured for the mummies and daddies to buy their mummies and daddies who speak, in this case, English picture books, who speak English. They would go to a shop and they would buy these books for their children, which they would share with them during the day or before they go to bed in the evening, or a teacher might use picture books in class as well. So it's text, so that's words and illustrations, but it's also the design of a picture book is also extremely important. And it is very much considered an art form as it hinges on the interdependence of the pictures and the words. So when we see a picture book, it's not just about understanding the words, but it's also about understanding and reading the pictures, because they will provide, sometimes they will make the words, they will give the words a different meaning. So a picture book is very different to a reader. Sorry, this seems to go backwards and forwards by itself. So with picture books then, the words and the pictures come together to create meaning. And when we're sharing them, we need to understand that the pictures and the words are important. So pictures will show information and words will tell information. And it's through these two parts that we can help children speak English. So it's not just by focusing on the words. And there are some picture books where the pictures and the words are, they show and tell the same information. And we're going to be looking at an example of that in a minute. And there are picture books where the pictures and the words show and tell slightly different information. And these are actually a little bit more challenging for our learners. And it's those picture books at the simple end of the picture word dynamic which teachers tend to choose for preschool or primary, precisely because they're very supportive of a learner, because the pictures show and the words tell fairly similar information. Often the illustrations are pleasing and they contain predictable, repetitive language, which I'm sure you're all familiar with in the classroom. You know, you want the children to be able to acquire language and feel confident about using, you know, repetitive structures. And often these books are concept books, so they cover common primary themes like colours, animals, numbers, the weather, etc., clothes, that kind of thing. Then there are picture books at the more complex end of the picture word dynamic, where they do much more than talk about common themes, and they aren't often selected for ELT. And some of these themes might include such things as teenage depression or drug abuse or war, bullying. These are topics which are normally suitable for older learners. Now, I've actually prepared a session that focuses on the 6 to 12 age range. So I haven't actually brought examples of books that are about unusual topics, but I've brought books which do promote discussion around topics which might be unusual for the ELT classroom. So the first book that I have brought today to share with you is called One Day in the Jungle, and this is an example of a picture book which would be suitable for your younger age group there, your grade 1s to grade 2 maybe, and you'll see that it's the pictures and the words show and tell fairly similar information. And as you're looking at the pictures as I tell you the story, have a think about why it's such a useful picture book to share with children in the classroom, in the language learning classroom. So this has not been written for language learners. It's been written for children who learn in normal schools in English-speaking countries. Okay, so I want you to think about how useful it would be for the children in your classrooms. So One Day in the Jungle. And this book is by Colin West, and it's actually, I don't know if you can see, but it's quite a small book. It's not particularly big, and this particular one is very, very used. So One Day in the Jungle. One day in the jungle, there was a little sneeze. Achoo! Bless you, butterfly, said the lizard. Sorry. I was trying to work out a way that I could get rid of my picture on there, but I'm not sure I can. I made the pictures of the picture book much bigger so that you could see them, but maybe that wasn't a good idea. Next day in the jungle, there was a not quite so little sneeze. Achoo! Bless you, lizard. Let's see if I can put these somewhere else so that they're not spoiling let's put them down there. Okay. Okay. Bless you, lizard, said the parrot. What do you think is going to happen next? Any ideas? What do you think is going to happen next? Any ideas? Pardon?
So, Sandy, is this like a storytelling session done with the children?
Yes. So this would be the book that we would be sharing with the children. What do you think would happen next? What do you think would happen next in the story?
The parent sneeze?
The parent sneezes. Let's see if that's what's going to happen. Yes, that's right. That's right. So next day in the jungle, there was a medium-sized sneeze. Achoo! Bless you, parrot, said the monkey. What do you think is going to happen next?
So next time the
You think the monkey's going to sneeze?
monkey is going to be infected.
That's right. Next day in the jungle, there was a big sneeze. Achoo!
Oh, it's louder.
Get the tiger. So the sneeze is going to get a bit bigger. Next day in the jungle, there was a very big sneeze. Achoo! Bless you, tiger, said the hippo. Uh-oh. Do you think the hippo's going to sneeze next? Next day in the jungle, there was an enormous sneeze.
Wow.
Bless you, hippo, said the elephant. And by now the children are thinking, oh my goodness. The next day in the jungle, there was a gigantic sneeze. And I'm going to need you to help me sneeze. Can you sneeze with me? 1, 2, 3. Achoo! Bless me, said the elephant. I blow away the jungle. Okay, so this is a very silly story and an example of a picture book at simple end of the picture word dynamic, very typical for children who are slightly younger, where the illustrations and the words show and tell the same information. Yeah, we can see that the elephant is going to sneeze, and that's what the words say, and that's what the pictures say. So it's very supportive of children at the beginning of their language learning experience. There we go. Okay, so do you think that you could use this kind of story in your classrooms?
Yes, why not? Yes, it would be exciting.
Does anyone want to say, give me any ideas of what you think you might be able to do with it? How you might use it?
How can you use it?
Teach the names of animals.
Teach if you have the theme you are teaching about animals. Yeah.
Language functions.
Language function? What do you mean, Anna? With
For example, if someone sneezes, you would say bless you.
so language function, and Suzanne says now it is good context to teach comparative and superlative adjectives, comparing animals using short and long adjectives. This is so that the teacher do the storytelling session. Then based on the story, they can do follow-up activities discussing grammatical points or any more ideas? So comprehension questions as a listening activity, maybe? Any more ideas?
Okay. But when we're telling a story like this, it's a good idea not to focus necessarily specifically on the language, but to encourage the children to enjoy the story for the story's sake.
It's just reading or listening for fun, you mean?
Well, I wouldn't say fun. I'm not sure I like the word fun. Pleasure, maybe. Pleasure is a good one to use.
Yes,
but sharing the picture book, because the children probably know language related to animals. So this gives them something to enjoy, because they are able to, they know the names of the animals and they can begin to join in. But the act of sharing and enjoying that sharing of the picture book is a really important social activity within a classroom. Yeah. So the language kind of comes out of it not as a focus, but as the children will begin to use the language because they will hear the story over several times over several lessons. So with something like this, repetition is really important. And so, and I'm sure that you can imagine that the children will be, bless you, the next day in the jungle. There was so as you said, your adjectives are really nice to put in there. So sequencing the animals in the order in which they appear, for example, would be a natural way of helping the children to then use the adjectives that you were mentioning. But the very simple use of bless you is something really nice here, because the children are learning how to be polite in English.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know if this is something that you would include in your sessions in English, but being polite is something like in English we say please and thank you all the time. It's very much part of our culture. And for example, I live in Portugal, and it's not part of their Portuguese culture to use please and thank you. It's not because they're rude, it's because it's just not something that they use a lot. And so helping children see that there are certain things that are said in certain social moments is also part of English learning. So picking up the bless you in English is something else that might come out of this, sharing this particular picture book. And so you might want to do a little role play. You're used to role playing, so you might have the narrator who might start as being the teacher, but could possibly a child who is a little bit more able could later do it with you. So the teacher, one day there was a little sneeze, and so there might be the child who's pretending to be a butterfly, and they would go through. You could use puppets if you wanted to. You could use I have some, just a minute, let me, can you see little puppets? Yes, that the children could, that you could either make, or the children could make, or you could use masks, and they could role play the story using these visuals. So the act of actually organizing the children to go into the sequence would naturally use the language tiny, not so little, medium size, small, etc. So that would come out nicely there. And they would also be doing their using the language. Something else that you might want to do is a song. If you're going to focus on the polite expression of bless you. I'm not sure, do you know the tune? This is a traditional song. My Bonnie lies over the ocean. La 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 la. Are you familiar with it? Does it ring a bell? Yeah. Yeah? So we would say, are you there? Yes? Okay, so we would say, go on. Did you want to say something?
Not all the teachers are familiar with that song, so it is not familiar in our culture. So
no, so but it's a traditional English tune, which is actually, if you Google My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean, you can hear the tune. Okay, so many of these traditional songs are easily accessible on YouTube. So you can hear the song, and these are words which we've written to the same tune. So we've taken a traditional English tune and we've changed the words. So it goes like this. We say, bless you when we sneeze. And if we want something, say please. When we can't hear, we say pardon. And thank you when we receive. Bless you, please, pardon, thank you. Bless you, please, pardon, thank you.
Oh, okay. You have a beautiful voice.
Thank you very much. Would you like to try and sing it with me?
Why not? Yes, we can give it a try. Yeah.
Okay, so let's have a go. 1, 2, 3. We say, bless you when we sneeze. And if we want something, say please. When we can't hear, we say pardon. And thank you when we receive. Bless you, please, pardon. Thank you. Bless you, please, pardon. Thank you.
Wow.
Well done, everybody. Well done. So let me just say what we would do. We would say you could have a handkerchief or a tissue made of paper. So you could hold it up and say, we say, bless you when we sneeze. And when you want something, say please. And when you can't hear, you say pardon. And thank you when you receive, yeah, bless you, please, pardon, thank you, bless you, please, pardon, thank you. Okay?
Yeah. To connect the meaning with actions. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and that also helps the children to remember the language that you're using.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So a number of different activities can be associated with this particular picture book. So it might be used not to, so you would use it if the children are familiar with, for example, in this case, animals from the jungle. So they would be able to understand the animal words, and as you're sharing the story, they would probably, at least this is what happens in Portugal. I don't know what happens in your countries, but when you show a picture, children often say tiger, hippo. Yes, would they call out and label the pictures? This is very typical behavior, and so the children would be able to relate to the story, and then by repeating the story over several sessions, they would gradually pick up some of the language and would be able to expand their vocabulary here. Okay, and of course they would also pick up the bless you, so the polite expression, and they would pick up, if we wanted to then also focus on please and thank you and pardon, etc. So the children in your class would start using these expressions during their English sessions with you. So that's a picture book, which is an example of a picture book at the simple end of the picture word dynamic, and which is very suitable for children who are in the early grades of learning English. So my next picture book that I want to share with you is called Yo Yes, and I think it's for 8 to 10-year-olds. At least this is the age that we would use it here in Portugal. But as I share the story with you, I want you to tell me if you agree, whether you think it should be for 8 to 10-year-olds. And also I want you to, if you can, I hope that you can see on your screen that the color of the pages changes as we move through the story. So I want you to tell me what you think about that. So you're going to have to multitask. So you're going to have to listen and look and think a little bit as I'm sharing the story. Okay?
Okay.
So Yo Yes by Chris Rashka. Yo Yes by Chris Rashka. I don't know if you can see, but this book has won an award, which means it must be a very good book because it's won an award. It's actually a book from America, and this is the Caldecott Honor Award, which is awarded every year to illustrators who have created a particularly special picture book. So Chris Rashka has dedicated this book to his parents. Yo! Yes. Hey! Who? You! Me? Yes, you! Oh! What's up? Not much. Why? No fun. Oh! No friends. Oh! Yes. Look! Hmm? Me! You? Yes, me! You? Well? Yes! Yo! Yes! Yow! So, that's the story. What do you think? Do you think that you could use it with 8 to 10-year-olds?
No.
Yeah, I guess it is suitable for grade 3 and 4. Yeah?
Yeah?
Yes, most agree that it can be used with grade 3 and 4, they are.
Anything older? I think it could be used with
Yes.
children.
Very simple.
I think it could be with all ages.
So, what do you think?
Even with adults.
Psychological message beyond this story.
So it could be with any
So
age.
Rabab says that they can grasp just the surface meaning, but the meaning behind the lines and the message behind it, she thinks that it is difficult for that grade to grasp.
So you would use it with older children?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
That it is possible for grade 5 and 6.
Yeah.
5
Yeah.
and 6, they can.
They can understand.
They can understand. They can
So,
understand.
Sandy, we have different points of view.
That's okay. That's fine.
Okay, the young children could capture the simple meaning.
Yeah.
When they
Yes.
get all, they could get the more
Yeah.
complicated, the more complicated until we, once you that, we come, many ideas comes to our mind.
Yeah. So it can be interpreted in too many different ways according to the age of the students.
And to the mental.
Yeah.
Lovely. Yes, those are great comments. Absolutely. I completely agree. Because the simplicity is actually deceiving, isn't it? Because the story is actually very powerful. Yeah.
The language is so simple, but the message is deep.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Could be conveyed in many ways.
And you can handle it in so many ways with different stages. So yes, you can use it with the grade 3 and 4, and you can use it in another way for more advanced children.
Okay, so what kind of activities would you do with this?
So it depends, Sandy. It depends on the post reading or post listening activities. The tasks you design based on the story.
Or the narration, how do you narrate the story so they can get the message.
Yeah.
As Mrs. Rida and Mrs. Sandie could modify that for us. We are the adults.
Yeah.
And we could.
So even with adults, you can use it to just simulate deeper messages or things like that.
So you would use it for discussion, maybe?
So in many different ways. But okay, you can use it with grade 3 and 4. When we say grade 3 and 4, we are talking about 7 and 8. And you can use it with older kids. And even with teenagers, can it be used with? So you can practice intonation and
Lovely, thank you. Yes,
super segmental features of
the children
language.
are not naive as we think. Sometimes, all the time, they surprise us.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I didn't quite hear, but so I'll just move on. So your slightly deeper level might be looking at the appearances and how different the boys are. Yes? Maybe emotions that they're feeling. And then you might want to go in with your older learners about how we make friends and what is friendship. Would that be something that you might want to do?
So you can adapt to the activities or even these questions according to the student's level. It's okay. But the context is very good, the story.
You mentioned pronunciation and in particular the power of punctuation. So this is interesting because often we don't do anything around punctuation with our learners. So this works really nicely with punctuation. And you can get them to either with one word or with a short sentence saying it in different ways according to the punctuation. So they have lots of fun doing that. And that you could also, how about role-playing the boys' conversation?
So you can design role-play activity based on the story,
I wondered if you would like to do that with me, because you're more or less divided into one half. Could you think the room could be divided into half?
Yeah, so we have this half, yes, and we have that other half.
Exactly. So what I'd like you to do is to stand up if you can in your half of the room.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, if you've got space, you might want to put your chairs underneath the tables. Okay. And I don't know if you remember what the boys look like, but the Afro-American boy was very cool. So let's have those of you on your right. Is that right? who is on the side of the Afro-American?
Yeah.
Can you just put your hands up if you're on the side of the Afro-American? Okay, great. So if you can kind of like stand like the Afro-American guy, okay? Yeah, you can. Very relaxed, yes. And then the other side of the room, you're going to stand like the Caucasian, white Caucasian. So he's got his collar up very tight. He's very upright. He's even wearing socks with his sandals. That's not cool. Lovely. Okay, so you would imagine then that with the children, we have already practiced pronunciation. We've had lots of fun with question marks, exclamation marks, and full stops. So this would be an activity to follow on from that. So those of you who are the Afro-American, you're going to be nice and cool. And those of you who are the white Caucasian, you're going to be a bit sort of tight. And I don't know if you noticed, but some of the words are bigger on the page and some are smaller. So when a word is bigger, we normally have to say it loudly. And when the words are smaller, we say them quietly. Okay? So let's see if we can do that. So let's see if we can get our pronunciation going. So, yo, yes, and this book is for your parents. You ready? 1, 2, 3. No?
Yo.
Come on, guys, louder than that. I want my cat to hear it next door. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Yo!
Yo.
Okay. And then,
Yes.
okay.
Hey.
Hey! Good. Good, I like the pointing. Me? Me?
Yes, you.
Oh, nice. I like it.
What's up?
Good.
Why?
Good.
Oh.
Friends.
Oh, no. I like the way you drop your head. That's great.
Oh.
Yes.
You cut my heart into pieces.
No. Me. You. Yes, me. You. Well.
Yeah.
Yes. Yo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well done. Very good. Thank you. It's not easy when you're in a small room. Okay. The children would enjoy doing this and might even want to create more role plays. We'll look at that in a minute. Remember I asked you about the colours? I'm not sure. Is it clear on your screen? Can you see the colours?
Yeah.
So how does the colour change as you go through the book?
Brown.
More bright in it.
Yeah.
Violet. Brown.
Oh. Wow. More shining. Yeah. Wow.
When things hospital.
So the colors are improving.
The colour, say that again. Sorry, I didn't hear.
Oh.
The colour does what? Because I'm not sure that you can see it properly. In the version that I have on my screen, goes from blue through to red, pink, and then orangey yellow. I'm not sure. Was that what you saw?
So the last green is yellowish green or greenish yellow, so something like that.
Yeah. Okay. In the Anglo-Saxon culture, the blue is cold and
and gloomy, depression. Yeah.
And then yellow is warm and happy. Is that the same in your culture as well?
Sometimes we have, yeah.
So sometimes?
But we have the green that represents growth and
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, blue, that means under blue, or so sadness, it's connected with sadness, yes. But sometimes it is connected with the blue sky and something, it depends. Yeah. Yeah, so yellow is always related with positive attitudes, positive feelings. So that's why they paint the hospitals yellow colors, even the classes for elementary.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Okay, right.
And light green is too.
Okay, okay. So this is something else that you can, so when you're sharing the book, you can also bring the children's attention to the way color moves through the book and how it changes and how that actually is associated with the feeling.
So this is a happy ending, a story.
Yes, it is. It's a very happy ending story.
It's with yellow.
I don't know if you noticed, but throughout the book, the children in the book are actually separated because of the white. Yeah. But
here it seems that they are confined in their own world.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And this is a very, very carefully created visual, which the illustrator has done.
Yeah.
So but what happens is when they become friends, that white is brought together.
Yes. Yeah. So, 1 page. Yes. It is a very simple story, but very deep and significant. Even the shapes, the colors, everything.
Yes.
So it suits all ages.
I guess it suits all ages, but it is upon the teacher how to design the activities.
Yes. Okay. So I hope now that you're beginning to see when I showed you the definition of the relevance of the image or the illustrations and the text and the design of the book is very relevant. And
so you can raise the critical thinking questions like that question you have asked us. Now, do the colors have meaning? Do the separate shapes? And compare it with the last page. It's very good to ask a higher order thinking skills.
Yes,
question.
Yes, and so that's why it's actually quite appropriate for children who are slightly older, because they will have the cognitive ability to be able to think and answer those questions. Yeah, absolutely.
So is it available online?
It's, when you say online, do you mean it as an ebook or do you mean to purchase online?
I mean, you can have a link just to download it, but
right. No, because these are picture books, which are in paper. So
so the colors and
yes. So but we can talk about how we can find picture books. I've got a slide or two on that at the end. So something else that you could possibly think about with your children are looking at general greetings from around the world. I don't know if you know, but yo is a greeting. It comes from Jamaica. And it's associated with the Rastafarians. And also it's a greeting used in Philadelphia in the USA. So we could possibly look at any other greetings that we have in different parts of the English-speaking world, but also maybe look at greetings in other parts of the world. And they might be able to find some interesting greetings and make their own dialogue. Yeah. They could role play the dialogues. They could make a book and they could share it with their family. So again, you could expand it in that direction. Okay. So next books, this is the last of my books to share with you. I think this book could be used with 10 to 12-year-olds, but you decide, you let me know what you think in Palestine, how you would use them, or with what age group you would use this
10
book.
10 to 12 years or so. You're talking about grades 5 and 6.
Is that grades 5 and 6? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the same in Portugal. Okay. So this is another book from America. Lane Smith is a very famous picture book illustrator. And as you can see here, just as Chris Rashka, he illustrates and he writes the words. So that means he must be pretty clever. So It's a Book by Lane Smith. And it's dedicated to Jake Berube. Don't know who he is. So Lane Smith wrote, it's a book, and it's a mouse, it's a jackass, and it's a monkey. So those are the three characters in the book.
Mouse? Yeah.
What do you have there? It's a book. How do you scroll down? I don't. I turn the page. It's a book. Do you blog with it? No, it's a book. Ah, just a minute. Oh, I think something's happened. No, it hasn't. No, it's okay. Sorry. Where's your mouse? Can you see the mouse?
Yeah.
Is he looking for a mouse like that?
No.
Do you think?
He needs the mouse of the computer.
That's right. Yeah, he means the mouse of the computer, doesn't he? Yeah. This has I'm not sure that just a minute. Okay, never mind. Can you make the characters fight? Nope. Book. Can it text? No. Tweet? No. Wi-Fi? No. Can it do this? Toot? No.
It's a book.
It's a book. Well done. Look. Do you know this story?
Treasure Island.
Treasure Island?
Do you know this? Do you know this story? Hello. Do you know this story? No.
Treasure Island. So says Treasure Island.
Yes, it is. That's right. It's Treasure Island. Yeah, that's right. Do you think your children would know this story?
Yeah, it is kind of famous here.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Too many letters. I'll fix it. Can you see how he's fixed it? Cat, lol. So, what else can this book do? Does it need a password? No.
It's a book.
Need a screen name? No. It's a book. Are you going to give my book back? No. Fine. What do you think the monkey's going to do? Where's he going to go?
Get another book.
To get another book. Where do you think he'll go to get the other book?
Because he's happy as a mouse start to love reading.
This is jackass.
I'm going to the library. Because that's where you find books. Don't worry, I'll charge it up when I'm done. You don't have to. It's a book, jackass. That's the end of the story. There's some interesting information here about Lane Smith because he wrote this book and it was a New York bestseller. And it talks about the different books that he's written. And then It also talks about Molly Leap, who's
Generation attitude is strongly motivated towards computers. Are not aware of the importance of books. So you can raise a debate, an interesting debate about based on the conflict between digital yes.
yeah, absolutely. It's perfect for that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say that on the back here, although this is actually often not looked at by the reader, but it actually talks about the fact that Lane Smith is married to the designer of this book. Okay, it's actually quite important. Yes. And if you remember, I mentioned the relevance of text, illustration, and design, because it's actually very important in the creation of these books. So,
yes.
How could you use this picture book? You've just said you could look at the difference between, or the relevance of discussion around book and digital literacy. In fact, this book was created in 2010, and that's actually 8 years ago. We were becoming concerned that ebooks would overtake real books. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, it hasn't happened, has it? We still like our real books. We still like our paper books, I think.
Yes.
Digital books did not overtake the world. But this book was written at the time when, people were really concerned about digital literature. Yeah. So you would use this to discuss digital and real book. Yes, that's what you said. Anything else that you might want to do with it?
You can design role play. Now some of the students take the role of the books.
Yeah.
This is a role play activity.
Comparison between technology, modern technology, and book.
And you can design some writing activities based on that.
More creative thinking. Suggest another end, what would happen if you were so and so. So maybe
we can design other activities like dialogue between technological apps like WhatsApp and Facebook, and make discussion also.
They will use their imagination.
Yes.
We can make a conversation between the laptop and the book itself. Why not?
Like that, yeah.
You are the computer and you are the book. What are your advantages? What are your advantages?
You talk about their yes.
Yeah. So that would be a discussion with older learners.
Or you can just raise open questions like, will this change one day in 10 years from now? Would you think that the people would stop reading books,
Computers
for example?
will control the world.
Yeah, you can raise just open-ended questions. So it is good for speaking activities.
Yes.
And this is something relevant, and I guess students will love talking about that, because this is an issue now. And that age, talking about grade 4 and grade 5 and 6, they are obsessed with technology. And I guess some of them do not read books. They just read everything on computer screens.
But books have magic.
Yeah, I know.
When the lines in front of your eyes.
Yeah, but talking about the kids now, they are obsessed. Even
they hate books.
Yeah. So I expect that when you raise such a question in grade 4 or 5, they said yes, computers will dominate the world, and we can read everything. We do with book and with technology, with computer, and at the end, when you do many activities in the class, you sum up everything, and you make a sum up a sketch about the differences between using computers, using technology, and the use of even your textbook. So speaking activities, and I guess you can again use it with some grammatical points like practice based on that story and based on the discussion. Now you use comparative. Now books are easier to read. These are more attractive. So lighter to heavy. You can take books with you, so you can make use of comparative and superlative adjectives in a very relevant and interesting context. So it fits in the present in the production phase after teaching certain grammatical points, for example. So I guess you can use them in so many different ways.
Okay, thank you. Yes, let's just have a look at some of the things that we could do then. You already mentioned pre-reading and post. You sort of brought it up. I've not sort of focused on that, but in fact, as with any communicative activity, you need to think about activities, during activities, and post activities. So before sharing this story, you might think about, what is a book, and any words that the children know associated with books, which might even go into the genre of books, which are their favorite kind of stories, maybe. If they have a favorite author or illustrator or a favorite book. You could ask them to interview each other in pairs and talk about going to libraries. I don't know, are there libraries in Palestine?
Yes, there is a library in every school.
Oh, lovely, lovely. And is it part of your culture to visit libraries?
Yes, it's part of their,
Great.
Yeah.
In Portugal, it's not part of their culture to visit libraries. So, and it's a very oral storytelling culture in Portugal. So books are I mean, of course, people buy them, but it's not part of their culture to read books. So
here it's part of the culture.
It's lovely. It's lovely. So you could talk about what books you get from the library, etc., and then they could report their answers to the class. So this is
Your favorite book, what is your favorite author as well?
okay. So that might be a way to start.
Direct way to encourage students and kids to be back to books and reading. I love this book because it's an indirect way. Yes, kids good from go and read. Books are interesting. Books are amazing. But this is an indirect way.
What is your favorite book? The last one you've read.
The last one, it was عبد البرتقال الحزين لأصلا كان فاني. I love it.
Good discussion is going around based on that.
What about going to libraries? Sorry, because I can't hear.
Yeah, and in addition to the library inside every school, we have other libraries here. Now, the venue here you can see is in a library in Gaza City. So some of the students just come here and do activities, and they can choose some books.
Lovely, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
great. And this is something we might want to talk about, maybe how we can get some picture books into your school libraries.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, so we got your pre-story activities then. You might also, if you wanted to, this could either be pre or even post actually, but thinking about the history of the book, where does it come from, how did it start, what was the first written language, stories without books even, the first printing press, and how books have evolved and the future of books. So this could either be a pre-story activity, but I think it could also be a post-story activity. Then, I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of those words, I'm pretty sure that you say them in your own language as well, right? You
scroll, block, and mouse,
So these are English words which are inserted into your sentences when you're speaking.
Yeah, but kind of international now.
Exactly, yes. So this idea of borrowed English words, again, we could look at, we could find other borrowed English words in our language.
Yeah. So I guess lots of words connecting to computer apps are borrowed from English, like Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah. So
save and
so you could even look at, you know, where do we find most borrowed words? Is it to do with more digital, more technology related?
yeah, with the digital technology, I guess. Yeah.
But you could ask the children to find out. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a good question to ask.
Yeah. And then you mentioned role play, which in fact, if you look at the illustrations in the picture book, you can see that the different voices are already in different colors. Yeah. So, can it text? No. Tweet? No. Wi-Fi? No. Can it do this? So you've got your different voices in the different colors. So this kind of naturally leads into your role play idea, or even a kind of script. So the children can write their own script and think about who would say it.
The replies of the book are stronger and more
So
confident.
does it have some connotation that the voice of the book, for example, because it is strong, deep, and
Confident.
no, a book. Short,
that's my interpretation of it. It might be the other way around. I don't know.
And it seems to me that the other sound is more friendly.
Yeah.
So does it have a message to just pass? Now that we're connecting with the technology, is softer and more
yes, and
more
decreasing their
modern.
feelings and emotions.
Is it a conflict between technology and book?
No, I'm just talking about
The effect of technology upon
the sound
humans,
effects.
I can say that the sound of the book is strong, not aggressive, strong, confident,
Deep.
Yes.
But very brief.
Very
So that's not that friendly. So is it that part of the message?
Yes.
And compared with the representing the technology, it's just more cute.
The daily questions of the mouse. Of the
I
computer.
don't know. Does it have a message or something?
I
Or-
think so.
It has
It's old and it is for old people.
wise,
And this is the wise people, the old people.
strong,
Or can the book still be modern and cute and
all the time.
so lots of questions to
That's
ask.
really interesting, yeah, whether the voice represents the I've never thought of that before, Rita. Thank you.
Yeah.
I see in my personal life, I've noticed that those who are addicted to computers all the time change by come to computers and laptop. The emotions and feelings and
Just,
innocence, and they delay even their friendship. They say yes, even the readers.
Yes,
So it
But
affects.
it is those classic people who are still proud of their books and persistent in reading. They have prestigious mood, and they are still in touch with their friends, still polite in their reactions.
So this is a Sandie, this is a philosophical discussion based on, does that affect the character? Okay, so back to you, Sandie. Very interesting.
Fascinating discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got your modern versus traditional. So we had computer or technology and book.
Wow.
You could do that with anything. So you could look at old telephones and new telephones, and you might even interview parents and grandparents and talk about what it was like in the past. And that maybe you could take photographs, you could write short texts about modern and old, modern and traditional life generally. So something else that you could do.
أنا عايزة بكسل بخاف من الموبايل.
Okay. Next one. Text messages. I don't know. Are you allowed to use mobile phones in your classroom? Are you
So
allowed to use mobile phones in your classrooms?
No, unfortunately, mobiles are not allowed to be used by students inside the class unless they have an activity based on mobiles. But some of the classes use not laptops, the tablets. But generally speaking, no, they are not allowed to take their mobiles.
Okay, but
This is a rule.
yeah, in this, that's pretty much probably the same the world over. But in this particular book, we actually have a text message which we might be able to use as a learning tool again. So if you remember this page, yes, and the text message here was actually summarizing the page in the story. So if you look, we've got Long John Silver said, "Arr." And then we're in agreement then. Here? He unleashed his broad cut, this laughing a maniacal laugh. Ha ha ha, that's that lol, laughing out loud. Jim was petrified. There's his petrified face. The end was upon him. Then in the distance he saw a ship. That's the exclamation mark. And a wide smile played across the lad's face. And there's the smile. So this little message here has summarized the text. And this might be something that we could do as well. We could look at how we can use internet slang and summarize texts. Mm-hmm. And you could send messages to each other. Something that you could think about doing.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you were talking about fables earlier, that you use stories with animals and things. In fact, you might want to think for your older learners, you know, is this book a fable? And how does using animals to make comments about people and society fit with this particular book? Mm-hmm. And at the end, it's a book, Jackass. Jackass is very derogatory in English. And in fact, this book was banned from many libraries in the US because of the use of jackass. Even though this was not meant in a, you know, the illustrator, Lane Smith, deliberately chose a jackass because of all the other donkeys and jackasses in other fables that we have in our literature. And you look at the donkey in Pinocchio and the jackass in Shrek, and in fact there are 20 Aesop fables featuring acid. So this is why he used the ass. And if you want to, you can actually have a look at his blog. He has a blog where he talks about this particular issue of the jackass. So for older learners, this would be an interesting discussion.
About the moral and
yeah. So this would definitely be an after story activity.
Yeah, something like that, yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
I've shared 3 stories with you and suggested particular activities, but you can just tell the story. Because sharing stories is such an important thing to do with our children. It doesn't have to be involved, or it doesn't have to be associated with any language point at all. As long as you've chosen a story which the children will be able to understand in part, then sharing that story is equally important. Okay? So my objective was to help you see the relevance and the power of picture books. I hope I've helped you see that they stimulate imagination. They can make our students think. They can contribute to positive attitudes towards language learning, literature, and the world around us. There are some really interesting topics. And they provide authentic learning affordances because you need to use English to talk about them. And they result, because of this, in authentic responses and language use for learners of all ages. So it's not just about focusing on language and grammar. It's about using English that we know to, you know, make the most of the book that we are interacting with. So I just wanted briefly to mention the idea of a story kit, because if you are already a group of teachers who work together, you might want to think about selecting picture books, and in groups maybe you might want to create a story kit which can be used by other colleagues. So, you know, you have this book and this is what we can do with it in Palestine. Or if somebody does this already, they might want to share. So I just want to, I've created a couple of, just a minute, story kits for you to see, and I'm going to send you one afterwards as whoops, where did it go? Here it is. Hands up. So this would be a story kit. So this is just the information that we've done today. And then this is what I would call a story kit. So it describes exactly what it is that you can do with One Day in the Jungle. You have a little summary of the book. We talk about the language, and then actually it's not 3 to 6, it's older. Sorry, I need to change that. And then the idea of the song. They could draw their favorite parts of the story. They could do the role play. Then here's another one for Yo Yes. So these are the ideas for Yo Yes. Okay. So I can share these with you at the end of the session.
Yeah.
And so having a collection of activities. Whoops, sorry. Having a collection of activities. Or having a collection of you know, story kits that can be used with picture books is really useful, especially if you're already a group of teachers who work together to help each other. And these are the kinds of things that you might want to include in your story kit. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now then, you asked, how can we get these books? Well, I'm not sure, to be honest. And this was why I was concerned about talking about them, because I wasn't sure how you'd be able to access them. I had to look at Amazon, which is a well-known online bookstore, and they don't send to Palestine. I had to look at other online bookstores, and they don't send to Palestine. So I don't know if you have any other way that you can purchase books, or if people can bring them to you.
We think about that. We can find a way.
Right. Because I don't know. I don't know. How do you normally purchase books, if you purchase books at all?
So pardon?
How do you normally purchase books? Do you normally, is it not something that you do?
Purchase
Purchase, buy, to buy books.
To purchase the box. I guess there are certain organizations, if you need some books, you can just give them titles and they can bring them. But I guess there is no direct way, for example, sending them by parcel, or no, it is forbidden.
Right.
Okay. Could be. But you can just order them online. Right. But you'll find a way that you can just ask somebody to bring them, and Amazon, yeah. Amazon.
You could get anything from all over the world. I mean, you can buy anything online.
Even you are in Gaza?
Even if you're in Gaza.
But I guess that was a long time ago, a year ago.
I bought lots of things.
This year?
Yeah. First time. No.
So Anna says that you can order things from Amazon, and this is something good.
Okay, great.
I'm not sure. We can ask about that. Okay. But I think a year ago that was banned. Oh.
Okay, but that's an issue with the picture book. And the fact that it's a book is actually very important, I think. So
we'll find a way to just get it.
Right. Okay.
Well, you don't have to buy it.
How to get them?
I mean,
No. I know, but you need that book with illustrations and that colors.
an original copy of the book. So,
Yeah.
no, I mean, why not?
Okay. Yeah. So I guess that's the end of the session.
Just a minute. Now I've got some resources for you, and on the handout.
Resources, resources.
So these are
very
all
important.
These are all online resources, and they're all about using picture books. Okay. So there is a handbook which has been published by the British Council. It's actually the third edition of this particular book, and this I think there's about 12 picture books in there. That's mostly for the 6 to 12 age range. Then Magic Pencil Exhibition and Drawing Words are also organised by all of these are organised by the British Council actually, and they feature illustrations and illustrators in picture books. Then Promoting Diversity Through Children's Literature is a website with about 7 different picture books that look at interesting topics in relation to promoting diversity, and they have lots of activities associated with them as well. And then Opal Dunn, who's like the grandmother or the mother of picture books in ELT, she published it between 1997 and 2004, a collection of Real Book News magazines with books that you can use with children from about 3 to 8. And so that's a useful resource for, you know, finding out what books might be suitable. Then if you, something that I'm involved in is more online resources, and this is picture books in European primary English language teaching, but in fact it's not just European, it's any primary English language teaching. And this is actually a Facebook page, Pepelt, and we talk about using different picture books in our classrooms, and this might be of interest to you. It started in October and we have over 1,000 followers. So I don't know if you have Facebook, but
we have.
And if you are in, because I know that some people don't use Facebook, but if you use Facebook, then you can, then you're very welcome to join the group there. And this we'll be talking about picture books for mostly.
Oh, that would be nice. Yeah.
The 6 to 12 is the focus, and then I have a blog which I created between 2010 and 2014, and that also talks about picture books and actually picture books for children up to 18, 19-year-olds as well. So picture books can be used with much older learners. So these are online resources which would be very accessible to you to help you see which books might be suitable. So I just thought you might want to have a little think about the takeaway from this session, something that you might want to remember, or something that you want to implement in the future, or something you might want to share with colleagues who haven't come today, or something that you want to know more about. So just if you want to have a little think and maybe write something in relation to these prompts.
So take away from this session, anything you have learned, some ideas on using books and picture books for teaching young learners. Of course, we can share this with our colleagues. Yeah.
There might be something in particular that
you want to implement. Something you want to implement.
You could replace lots of, I mean, away from explaining vocabularies and grammar and so on. Like you could have all in one, like culture, vocabs, lectures, literature, and everything in just like one book.
So that's one of your takeaways for today, yes?
Yeah.
That's a great takeaway. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Something we want to remember. I'm sure, Sandie, are you going to send the recording? So if in case we forget something, we can just refer it.
Yes, I'll send the recording, and I'll also send the handout that I prepared.
Yeah, and it is an opportunity just for other teachers who were not lucky enough to share this, because, you know, we have a very small venue here, so we couldn't invite lots of teachers to share and in the discussion. So when we post the video, this will give an opportunity for more teachers to get benefits and share ideas with us.
Great.
And I guess that now we have one teacher from a different school, so during the meeting they can share the ideas discussed in this session with the colleagues, and they can just try a strategy or to implement some of the ideas and get the other colleagues to observe, and that will be very nice.
Great. Great.
And lots of things to know about more about this. Yeah.
Yes.
We have still lots of questions to ask, but you have given lots of resources, and we are going to join the Facebook group. So I guess we you are opening a window for us.
Great. That's fantastic.
It is just a start. Yeah.
Hope to see you online with the Facebook page. That'd be lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it was lovely to meet you all, although virtually, and keep up the fantastic work that you all do. And thank you very much for giving up your Saturday morning for me.
Thank you very much for this interesting, unusual session with lots of something new, relevant, and practical. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
So bye from everyone here.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye from everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your time.
Bye-bye.
Sandie, thank you.
Bye-bye.